So those of you who are here already, I'm sorry that we didn't put it in bold or something for that we were starting at 9 today to complete Pierre's wonderful discussion of collector's garden. But we have been out in the garden and we have been doing some things, but we didn't put together an in our garden for this week. We thought we would just make it a 9 o'clock start. So as usual, mute your microphone, which we should have done when we walked out of the room. There's Pierre in one of their snow dumps in Connecticut, and he was shoveling to get to the bird feeders, which is where Steven's gone right now, to get to the bird feeders and get them filled up. There is a what do you call it? A conclusion, not a conclusion, but an additional finding on the bird feeder painted with paint plus red pepper, that it appears that it is working to keep them from chewing on things. And Steve is now of in the opinion that the hot glue gun, which he uses frequently to fix smaller holes that the squirrels start on the feeders, they start chewing wherever they can get a hold, and if you can get there fast enough, they don't make a great big hole. He seals those with a hot glue gun, and he's now playing around with putting a bit of hot glue, sprinkling pepper on, putting more hot glue. He says, let them just chew through that. So maybe we have another way to keep them out of the feeders. They are everywhere. It's been too mild this winter, way too mild this winter. Those squirrels are all over the place. I've been working on the crabapple. Showed it to you when the squirrels were running through it, using the thicket of new branches to hide from the hawks. And I've been out pruning, learning that, discovering that I no longer can negotiate a garden on snowshoes. I've become too uncoordinated to handle my feet when there's snowshoes on them. So I've had to spend quite a bit of time putting things down to keep from mashing down the garden. And when I got done and it was beginning to get dark, got mostly done, I complained to Steve about, now I have to pick up all those branches, and he's been out picking up branches, which has been kind of nice. And let me see, what else did we put in there? We're going today to Kalamazoo. A friend invited us to see a play called Native Gardens, which it's a comedy, or so it is written up as a comedy, about a couple neighbors who go to war over a fence line. And I think it might be too close to home. Some people might think it's funny, but I've had too many of these kinds of things. Have you ever been involved in one of these disputes over a fence? We had one client lose 14 feet of garden all down one side when the argument escalated to the point of saying, okay, I'm just going to get another what do you call it? Survey. I'm going to surveyor out here and we'll figure it out. 14 feet of garden just gone, became the neighbors. It's like, you don't really want to know that. And in another one, the neighbor kind of knew where the line was. Yeah, I would say B knew where the line was, but it was acreage that was involved, and the neighbors looked through a big wooded area to hers. So she started clearing the buckthorn and honeysuckle and things that didn't belong out of the woods area, and planting native wildflowers and native shrubs and things to go in there. And suddenly one year, the neighbor, after many years of this being okay, decided it wasn't okay anymore, and suddenly we were moving shrubs and things out and abandoning precious bloodroots and things that, well, we'll just let them be out there. So I don't know whether native gardens will be as funny for us as it might be for other people. And some of you remember Karen Bovio. Are you there yet, Diane? Diana, did you get my message? Diana wondered about coral charm peony. She said, is it really coral, and does it stand up well? Is it a good one? Do you know about it? I said, coral charm. I know coral charm. We used coral charm somewhere. I don't remember what garden or gardens we put it into, but I remember that Karen Bovio was the one who carried it. Karen Bovio retired 2 years ago now from running specialty growers, one of the best, absolutely best perennial growers in the country. And she's enjoying herself immensely now. But she carried Coral Charm. So I called her up and, well, no, did I call? Yeah, I did call and asked her, so you carried it. Was it a good sturdy peony? And is it really coral? She said it is coral, but it's real early. And yep, it's sturdy. It's got very sturdy stalks and it stands, it's a more upright peony. It's not one of those more mounded Labor Day, no, what do they call them? Memorial Day peonies. It's a cross between the Labor Day, the Memorial Day peony and a different one. And she said, yep, it's real sturdy. And then she said to say hello to everybody, that she's enjoying herself. She is currently seeding in vegetables for herself and for the friends that she starts some things for, seeding in vegetables. And she said she can't quite get away from gardening, but she's been doing a lot with her. She's got grandkids now, which is really nice, and doing stuff in her own garden. But she says to say hello. And I don't know that picture of Coral Charm, because those are all pictures of Coral Charm that came from the internet. And that one right there, that's just off screen, you can see that the pinky shows. She said it kind of starts out pinkish and goes to coral. Who knows? This is not Coral Charm over here. It's a tree peony, and we were talking about how all of the Ito hybrids or Ito hybrids, I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce ITOH, for the Japanese breeder who crossed the Memorial Day herbaceous peonies with the tree peonies. But those hybrids are great, sturdy plants. They stand up like nobody's business. So if you've got that kind of peony, that's always a great one to have.
We have a hand up from Mary, and we also have in the chat, Carol has said, and I think it's just come to me, do you know who Robert Pavlis is? And have you heard of Aspen Grove? Aspen Grove is supposed to be the name of the garden he created.
I don't, the name doesn't sound familiar to me, but that doesn't mean anything. Names are, if it's the name of a plant, it gets glued into my head. If it's the name of a person, sometimes I have to see a picture to know what's going on. I just realized when you said that I forgot to open up the chat, so I don't know who's come.
Oh, well, like I said, that came just to me anyway. So
In danger.
all right, Mary, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yes, Janet, I'm in southern Minnesota and we're having an extremely warm winter. We have absolutely no snow at all, which is really weird. But I usually prune shrubs and trees in February. But our temperatures are in the 40s. It even made it up to 50 all this week. And evening temperatures can be right around 30. Can I go ahead and prune, or am I sending messages to these plants that it's springtime?
You can go ahead and prune. I've started pruning. There have actually been several temperature periods that should have been the usual January thaw and time to go out and prune, but it was too wet. It was just terribly wet. And I was quite frustrated, but I pruned this week, Thursday, because Thursday it was dry and was going to stay pretty much above 28. Then I'm going to prune again on Sunday, tomorrow, to finish up the pruning I was doing. And the actual pruning doesn't stimulate the plants to grow. It's the accumulated warmth that does. And there are some plants that might start growing despite whether you prune them or not, because they have already gotten as much cold as they needed, and now they're getting enough warm. Because most of our hardy plants have they build up chemicals inside their cells in the fall that have to kind of like radioactive materials, they have to degrade, and it takes them a certain number of hours of cold to degrade. And once they degrade, then the warmth starts working them the other way. So there may be some things that wake up, and it won't be your fault for pruning them. So I would go ahead and prune just as long as you can. our ground isn't frozen. We've had the same problem. It's been such a warm winter, and we did get some snow a couple of times, which insulated the ground when it was actually cold. There's been no frost in the ground at all. So I was very worried about walking out there. It's been wet and the ground is squishy, and you don't want to do that. So be careful where you walk. Either put your snowshoes on or put boards down to walk on, do something to protect the ground.
Well, we're very droughty. We haven't had any moisture in, 3 weeks.
Oh, okay, so
So-
you haven't been with these foggy days like we have. It's just been,
We had fog, but we sure haven't had any moisture, so our ground is barely frozen and, but it's not wet. It's,
okay. Oh, well, then good. You're in good shape.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, thanks a lot.
sure, Mary. I'm chatting as a guest. I do not like this new chat window, not at all. We mentioned last time that I'd wasted, well, kind of wasted some time on trying to figure some things out with Zoom. Their help people are interesting. But I still couldn't figure out anything else that I can do with the chat. It's still going to say those silly things when we start off and kind of take up room in the chat. What's this? Carolina Lupin. I can see a part of the chat and somebody.
Karen is saying a picture of my old garden in Farmington Hills came up on Facebook yesterday. It had a picture of my beloved Thermopsis villosa, Carlinine lupine. It is known as false lupine. It came up every year and it really stood out in the garden. It was a great plant for pollinators. I haven't seen this plant in any nursery for a long time, but would love to find it this year, even if I have to grow it from seed. Have you seen it recently anywhere?
I'm trying to think of anybody selling Carolina lupin, but I have seen it in gardens. It is a very pretty plant. We had it in some of our gardens. It's big. It's kind of like Baptisia. It's the biggest Baptisia, big yellow flower. I learned it as Thermopsis caroliniana. It's probably had its name changed again. And I first saw it in the, Steve would know the name. There's an arboretum on the grounds at Ohio State's campus. And I've forgotten the name of that arboretum, but I first saw it there in their native collection, and I hadn't realized that there was such a thing. But it's one of the plants that they've done a little bit of hybridizing with lately. So it should be out there, but I haven't gone looking.
I just love the fact that you're like, oh, I'm not good at people's names. I only know flowers, and then remembers Karen's birthday. I barely remember your birthday.
Well, Karen was a student in our School of Gardening many years ago when we had the school running, and she is one of those people that just stands out in my mind. And I remember her coming in, I think it was on her birthday. I don't know why I remember that, but Karen is quite allergic to juniper and pine. And she came in looking like someone had put war paint on her. Do you remember this episode, Karen? You were just streaked all over your face because it turns out that that at that point, yeah, thank you. At that point, you'd figured out that it wasn't just juniper, but pine as well, and the needles had brushed your face. I can't believe you remember that. It was very impressive, Karen. It's totally and completely impressive.